We are here this morning on this day, on this unique day, to make sense of our lives. We are here to discover that even to question can be an answer. We are here to make sense of this life. And we begin so by doing in song this morning. So will you join in singing with me? Number 354 in the gray hymnal. We laugh, we cry. We're going to sing verses 1 and 4. So the first and the last verse. You are welcome to rise in body or in spirit. Welcome all of you to this day, this beautiful day, and to this place, this assembled body of people known as a congregation, known as the Universalist Unitarian Church of Halifax. You are the Universalist Unitarian Church of Halifax. You create it by your coming together, and we create community. We create sacred spiritual community by our coming together to ask questions and to put love at the center and to ask ourselves what it means to lead intentional lives that make this world a better place for all of us. We are Unitarian Universalists, and we are people of questions. We are questioners, we are seekers. We are here because perhaps we have left something else that told us that there was one singular answer held by one singular person or one singular teacher in this life. And we are here because we realize that there are many paths to truth, many different ways of understanding it. So many that there are as many paths as there are you, because you all have unique wisdom to bring to this space. If you are here for the first time or you are new or new-ish, I welcome you. And if you are returning for many times, I welcome you too. We're so glad to have all of us here. I'm Reverend Israel. I'm the interim minister of this congregation, and I hope you will come talk to me afterwards if you'd like to know more about me or about this congregation. And that goes for the folks who are joining us on Zoom, who are here with us. We see you and we welcome you too, and I welcome you to say hello to me. I'm going to begin our service this morning by lighting a chalice, which is the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist movement, the symbol of the light of truth, that the people who have been a part of this movement throughout its history have sought to uncover new truths throughout the ages, always seeking to shed more light in the dark corners of the world. As we move into our time of worship together, we begin with a call to justice. Who's doing that for us this morning? Call to justice and a land acknowledgement. Okay.
So as always, we gather in this incredibly old building. But we also need to speak the truth that we are in Shabukduk, the great harbor, which is settlers called Halifax. And that this part of Halifax, all the way down to Point Pleasant Park, was very sacred to the Mi'kmaq. And there's a whole bunch of history behind that. Every time we meet, we remind ourselves that we are in Shabukduk and Mi'kma'ki. And there are some that call those empty words and a ritual because we say them, even trying to say them differently, but it just becomes part of a nothing, just words. But they're not words. We need to constantly remind us that we are in a place that really we have no right to be. And there's a history behind that too. So when we say the words, when we say Shabukduk, when we say Mi'kma'ki, it is in fact a call to justice and to remember that we are all treaty people.
Take a moment now to come into this space and to greet those who you are gathered with on this sacred land, the people that you are gathered with to live justly and to live into our values with. Greet your neighbors.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, all of you out there from Scott and Hackett's Cove.
Morning.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, Kim.
Angela, is your washing on the line this morning?
Good morning.
Can I put this closer to you or do you want it over here? Okay.
He'll adjust it.
What's that?
He'll adjust it.
Okay.
Oh, you wanted this one?
Not yet. But you know what? I mean, go for it if you
I
want
can
to.
make it into something else. There, see?
Join me in singing Grateful for the many paths that bring us to this place, the many questions that have brought us to this place, and the people we are gathered with to sing here together on your order of service, our gathering song.
I'm watching you. I'm making the intro long. We are here together in this holy
part of the winding road of being a Unitarian Universalist is knowing that we come from a long and winding road of heretics. Yeah, yes, do it again, please. Can I hear that again? So, I am very excited to be gathered in a room with a bunch of heretics this morning. Maybe you haven't embraced that label for yourself. But I'm going to tell you why we are heretics. And that word carries weight because, of course, in some points in history, being a heretic meant that you paid for your questions with your life. That's what it meant to be a heretic at some points in history, and actually it does mean that in some places in the world today too. Still, to be a heretic means to question. Now, the root actually of the word heretic comes from Greek and aretikos, and it meant one who was able to choose or able to choose. That's simply what it meant. That is the root of it. Someone who was able to choose rather than someone who ascribed to a dogma that was chosen for them by a group of men who were in charge, who told others what to believe. And so it was someone that stepped out of that fold and said, wait a minute, I'm not so sure about this. I'm not so sure this works for everyone. I'm not so sure this is true. And so we are here because of a long line of people who asked questions and challenged the status quo. In fact, I'll give you one more etymology this morning. The word question itself. The word question itself comes from the Latin, and I like saying this. This is a hard word in Latin to say. Any Latin scholars in the room? No, okay. Good, so nobody's gonna correct my pronunciation. Okay. The word question, the root of which is the Latin word caerere, okay, which means to seek. To seek. It's where we get the word question. It also became the word questium, which meant to doubt or interrogate. So from to seek, to doubt or interrogate became the word question, which we have. The word question is a noun and a verb, but for us it is. I'm going to present to us this morning that it is a verb, or it is rather our way of being. It is the foundation of who we are as a people, as a faith, as a movement, as a people who are always moving, progressing, thinking, questioning. Questioning even when it requires courage to do so. Questioning even when it requires courage to do so, because to do so means questioning power or questioning the status quo. This is why we are here this morning. That's why we are here every morning, but this morning we are here because of questions. So I ask you this morning, what are you here to seek? What are you doubting? What about our world do you feel like needs to be interrogated a little bit or a lot? The process of questioning really just means for us this morning that we live life intentionally. And I say that because one of the characteristics of living things from a scientific perspective is that living things grow and develop. So if you are not growing or developing, I ask, are you truly living? And so questions then help us to come alive and to remember that we are alive and to remember that we care about the world, about making the world better, about ourselves, about improving ourselves, about improving our relationships with other people. They remind us that we are open, open to being wrong and interrogating our own beliefs, open to change and growth. And so we are here to come alive together. So let's do a little bit more of that this morning. Let's do that in song now. We're going to do it with one of my favorite songs from the Teal Hymnal. This has some components to it. It can be around, so Jessica's gonna show it to us and teach it to us.
Okay, so many of you may know this. You can stand if you like. I am going to put it into 2 rounds. So there's a 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hold on, can I tell them what number it is?
101003.
Okay. It's 1003.
Yes. Okay. So I will sing it. This is going to be my group 2. Okay? You're all my group 1. They're part of group 1. That's why I'm going like this. Okay. So I'll sing it a couple times and you can join in when you feel comfortable. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? So now I'm gonna do one group here, okay? And then you're gonna join after. Ready? And 1, where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from?
I just realized that's all one thing.
Where are we going?
Okay.
Where do we
Mystery,
come from?
mystery. Everyone, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Group 2. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery.
Life is a riddle and a mystery.
Mystery,
Mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery.
Everyone, where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Keep going.
What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from?
What are we? Where are we going? One more time. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? That was really good for my pointing everywhere.
Yeah.
We'll work on that. We'll get the choir to learn it, and then we'll all point to you.
I can't remember the quote. Okay, it's all right. I think it was Gloria Stewart in the great 1997 film, Titanic, who said something to the effect of, there's a heart, an ocean in everyone's hearts, or something like that. Anybody remember that quote? An ocean,
I remember that.
an ocean of mystery in your heart,
Yeah.
something like that. Meaning that we all carry an ocean of mystery in our hearts that we sometimes guard deeply, the depths of which can be frightening and scary and dark and cold, and we feel like we need to hide that depths of our heart often in life as we move about. And sometimes that mystery that we carry deep in our hearts is beautiful and and life-giving for us when we allow it the time that it needs to develop in the darkness and in the depths. And sometimes we need to dive in with each other, dive in deep below the surface and reveal the depths of our hearts to one another. And so that's one of the things that we do here, is to open up our hearts in community, to name the things that need to be named out loud in community with each other, to name the things, the heavy burdens that we need help carrying, and to allow ourselves to be joyful for the gifts of life. So we gather here at this well to name those things together. So now is the time for all of you, any of you, who have a joy, a sorrow, or a complex truth, something that is neither joy nor sorrow, that lies in between, to come up and take a stone and to drop it into our well and to name it out loud or in silence. And just remind you that you can always come up and drop a stone in silence.
For my husband's Aunt Myrtle, who died 96, but I don't know for 9,000, so for 10 years anyway. So my husband says she's kind of gone for a while, but still, she's the last of her family. She has 9 brothers and sisters, they're all gone before her. So it's up to the nieces and nephews. Just give her a proper time. She's a lovely lady.
So the other day, my daughter's best friend, that actually she first met when they were counselors at Unicamp, so there's a strong Unitarian connection. Michelle and her husband Eli, who also used to be a camp counselor at Unicamp. It's not on?
We're just barely catching you on the other one.
Yes, it
Okay, well that would explain why I couldn't hear Pam.
should work now. Try that now.
I thought the reason I couldn't hear Pam was because I forgot to buy hearing aid batteries, so I'm really operating a bit in the dark this morning. Sorry, my daughter's friend Michelle, that they met at Unicamp a long time ago. Unicamp's a Unitarian camp in Ontario. Michelle and her husband Eli, who also used to be a camp counselor, they had twins this week. Freddie and Archie. And everything's supposed to be fine, but Archie weighs under 3 pounds. So this is for Archie, and I'm thinking about and keep waiting for updates, and Freddie. And for Michelle and Eli, who were also married at Unicamp by Pat Trudeau. I suspect these names will be mentioned in many churches in Southern Ontario, but let us mention them here and hold them here in our hearts.
I'm going to get emotional saying this, but all of the discussion recently with the Portapic report coming out coincides almost exactly to the time that I was admitted to the hospital 3 years ago with acute kidney failure, unbeknownst to me until then. But I really have not, with COVID, had an opportunity to thank this congregation and everybody here at the time who were so supportive and sent me positive energy, I swear, almost every day. And of course, tons of casseroles and food that came to our house. I'm sure they thought I'd only be in the hospital for a week, but it turned out to be 3 weeks. So Franklin was freezing everything. But I've never really properly thanked you or had an opportunity to. And so many of you, my new friends from Wednesday night, weren't even here at the time, but you were always in my hearts, for sure.
Zoom folks are welcome to type into the chat too if you need that reminder. For everything that we all carry deep in our hearts, the mysteries in the ocean of our hearts, for the joys, sorrows, and complex truths, the things that are simply beyond words on some days, that will be given words and perhaps or will not. For all of you and for all of the new life and growth and gratitude and sorrow, and all of the stuff of what it means to be human. The things that help us float and the things that weigh us down. And for the ocean that we are all swimming in. I invite you to take a moment to breathe with me. The reason that we breathe together is to remember that we are alive. Remember to pay attention to something that happens automatically, to not take life for granted. That's why we pay attention to our breath. I invite you to continue to pay attention to your breath and remember this as you do. That to live, to embrace life through questions means this, to take an orientation to the world where each question opens up and invites a world of possibilities. Whereas answers can be used to define boundaries, yes or no, this or that. Questions open up. And so I submit that questions are divine because they are the process through which we create the world together. So with each breath, remember to breathe and to dream, to question and create, and remember that you are alive on this beautiful day. quote the great Eric Idle this morning. Why are we here? What's life all about? Is God really real? Or is there some doubt? Well, today, we're going to sort it all out. We're not. We won't, I promise. We are here to ask some questions together. That's what we're doing today. Why are we here? Because we're not there. That's great. I'm writing that one down. Why can't I live forever? And would I actually want to if I could? And would life mean anything if I did live forever? Would it have any meaning whatsoever? Why is the world so beautiful and so terrible at the same time? Why do I find myself so unhappy on so many days, yet still so sad about the fact that I will one day die? Why, despite everything, am I still drawn to seek beauty in this world? I said that today was a choose your own adventure service. Choose your own adventure service for you, the seekers out there who have come here this morning. So what we're going to do is I am going to let you ask me some questions. And I'm going to respond to them. But I'm not going to give you answers necessarily in the way that you might want them. We'll get to that. But what I invite you to do is to think now on some of the questions that you might have in your heart, that you might be wondering about, that you would like to hear me respond to. I don't mean like what's my favorite flavor of ice cream. It's spumoni, by the way. And if you don't know what that is, you can ask me later.
It's what?
Spumoni.
I thought you said baloney.
But maybe if that was a truly theological, philosophical question for you, then you could also ask it too. See, it's not about the questions that we ask, it's about how we respond to them and are moved by them as we seek to answer them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around, there it is. So for anybody who wants to ask a question, you are welcome to come up and take a piece of paper here and a writing implement. Actually, I'm just going to pass out some cards around the room. You could, if anybody, you don't have to write down a question, but you can. We probably definitely won't get to answer all of them today, but I will make them available for all of us to see. And so they can become our guiding questions moving forward. So you'll just have to share these. And if you want to ask a question, great. If you don't feel moved to ask one this morning, then that's also fine too. But so when you have one, you just pass those out. So these would be sort of like the big questions that are on your mind. You have them, you can fold it in half and come put it in this basket, or raise your hand and I'll come around with something. And Jessica's going to play some music for us while you think of your questions. Does anybody have any questions? Are there any questions about questions?
Is that the one you're supposed to do?
When you're supposed to do the pink song, but this works too. You can end on that maybe.
No, I'll do it now if you want. I didn't know. Okay. We are searchlights we can see in the dark. stars. We are billions of beautiful hearts. We and you sold us down the river too far. What about us? What about all the times you said you had the answers? What about us? What about all the broken happy ever afters? What about us? What about all the plans that ended in disaster? What about love? What about trust? What about us? We're problems that want to be solved. We are children that need to be loved. We were willing, we came when you called, but you fooled us. Enough is enough. If you know it, sing it out loud. What about us? What about us? What about all the times you said you had the answers? Oh, what about us? What about all the broken happy ever afters? What about us? What about all the plans that ended in disaster? What about love? What about trust? What about us? Sticks and stones may break these bones, but then I'll be ready. Are you ready? It's the start of us waking up. Come on, are you ready? I'll be ready. I don't want control, I want to let go. I'll be ready, 'cause now it's time to let them know. Oh, what about us? What about all the times you said you had the answer? Oh, what about us? What about all the happy ever afters? What about us? What about all the plans that ended in disaster? What about love? What about trust? What about us? 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 What about all the times you said you had the answers? What about us? What about all the broken happy ever afters? What about us? What about all the plans that ended in disaster? What
So in preparation for today, I reached out to our religious exploration families and had them ask their children if they had any questions. And I got 2 back. One from Jason, who is 10, asks, "You, Israel, and the rest of the congregation, what is God?" Keeping it easy right away.
Whoa.
Is there there's a second question?
There is a second question. The second question
right.
was asked anonymously, and it is, did a God create the universe or many gods collectively?
Okay. All right. I'm looking at all of these questions, and it's really the most interesting thing about them to me is how related they are and how similar many of these questions are. I have like 3 different categories of questions here. So, is there a God, and did one God or many gods create the universe? Those were the 2 questions. What is God? Oh, okay. So I don't know. No. Bye. No. That's like God is a God. Some of you hate hearing that word. Some of you really like it. I really enjoy talking about it because it's really fascinating. God to me is not a noun, a thing. It's a process. It's a conversation. It's an evolution. It's not a stagnant thing. I do not believe in like an all-powerful, all-knowing creator God who is up there watching us kind of thing. I don't think that if there is a God, that's what God would be. I think that's just too simplistic. It's nice, it's comforting, but I think it's too simplistic. Rather, what I ask myself is, what is worthy of our attention? What is worthy of being revered in this world and in this life? What is worthy of being worshipped, so to speak? And those things for me are really what happens. So if there were a God, did it create the universe? Or how, or did multiple gods create the universe? And I would say that if there were a God, it's really what happens when people come together to recognize and realize that they're alive. When people come together to recognize that the world is beautiful, but there's also suffering. And it's the thing, the force, the desire that pulls us across from like where we are, as in the ways that the world is messed up, and makes us want to do better. That to me is the closest thing that I could identify to something that is divine or sacred. It is the force that makes us pay attention to the world, to its beauty, but also its pain, and makes us want to make something, build something, create something that is more beautiful. And in that sense, it creates the world through people, through their actions, through our paying attention. That's why that's really why, like, every time I stand in front of you, I say, you are alive on this beautiful day. Look how beautiful it is. You are alive. You are carrying whatever it is that you are carrying in your heart. Yet out there is suffering, and in here there is suffering, and in you there is suffering, but you are alive. And you might have some strength in you to make the world better today, or you might be in a place in your life at one point where you don't have strength and you need others to help give you strength so that one day strength might return to you. And then one day you will die. And hopefully, the ways that you spent, the time that you spent making things more beautiful in this time, gave others strength to carry it up after you're gone. That's pretty divine to me, even though it is not our Lord in the sky judging us all. So, I hope that answers the question, or at least provokes some thoughts. Okay, so I have a whole stack of questions here. Okay. Can I see it up here? Or do you want to, can I look at it? I have a whole stack of questions here that are basically some version of, okay. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Okay. I have a whole stack of questions here that are basically some version of why does evil exist? Okay, so let me, what does it mean? Oh, hold on, that's a different one. Okay, where did they go? Okay, I'm going to read them all and try to respond to them in some way together. Why does the world seem so divided and filled with hate, anger, and violence? Are people inherently good or become evil, or some born evil? Why do humans keep regressing even after decades of making progress? And they list some different areas where progress had been made, and like women's rights, equality, climate justice, etc. Why does violence and hatred persist? What do you think is the best way to overcome all of the hatred, fear, and violence in our world today?
That's a couple minutes.
Why is humanity incapable of learning from its history? Never again seems repeated daily. Okay. Those are all more or less the same question to me. So I'll start. Okay. Why do violence and hatred persist? Because it can. because good people, because people let it, because we live in a culture that separates us and forces us to compete with each other for scarce resources that we think are scarce but aren't really scarce, because we exist in a culture that separates us rather than unites us, and for those who have privilege, we often forget to spend it and to open ourselves up, to make ourselves vulnerable, and to use the privilege that we have to help others. Not to help others, but to recognize that our salvation, not in a biblical sense, but that ending or addressing the suffering in the world requires acknowledging that there is a deep interconnectedness and it matters how we treat each other. I'd say that evil happens simply because people let it happen, because people don't respond to things that are happening in the world, because people are comfortable, because people have things going on in their own lives and can't be responding to every single need that happens in the world at every single moment. And so there's just too much going on in the world to be able to respond to all of it at any given moment. And then, of course, there's the structural things that we need to change that will prevent powerful people from abusing their power. So that's the biggest thing to me, is that we ask ourselves often how we can prevent evil and suffering from happening in the world, and we think that it's just our individual responsibilities. But we have a structure or a system in place that allows evil to persist. And so really the most important thing, I think, is to rewrite those rules in that structure so that it can stop people from taking power and stop people from abusing a system. And I think that's another big part of it too. I think that evil probably will always exist, and just as evil will always exist, the impulse to call us back to our interconnection will always persist too. And really what it comes down to is people living intentionally and caring about each other and caring about the world and caring about their connectedness. Are people inherently good and become evil, or are some born evil? I think, there's a saying in Unitarian Universalism that we are all born with original blessing rather than original sin. I would just like to say that we are born wanting love. And we may go out into the world and we may find that we receive it or find it or don't. And then we develop patterns of behavior to cope with whether or not we find love or don't find love out in the world. And then some people end up closing themselves up more to it because they don't see it, or they think it's harder to find love out in the world. And I think part of a spiritual practice or intentional living is being able to cultivate a sense of that love, that connectedness that is out there, and being able to see it and open yourself up to its possibilities. And I think that's how people get to a place in their life where they end up doing evil things. Because I don't actually believe that anyone is good or evil at their sort of base essence. I think that it's all coping mechanisms that people develop to deal with the world, and patterns of behavior that they develop to deal with the world and to respond to the world. That doesn't mean that people shouldn't be held accountable. Yeah.
One definition of evil that I've read
Yeah.
is basically the absence of love.
Hmm.
So the absence of love can happen to a person or for all time, or they don't get love, or momentarily, and they do what could be perceived as an evil or not good because at that moment there was an absence of love.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of essentially what I'm saying, I think. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's at the basis of, restorative justice, the restorative justice process of thinking that somebody who causes harm shouldn't just be locked away forever because they're hopeless, that there's hope for everyone to improve and return to love in their actions. Some people need to be stopped. If somebody is literally hurting someone or about to kill somebody, you're not going to just say, I'm not going to approach someone who is in the process of actively harming someone at my detriment and say, find the love in your heart right now. I know that's kind of ridiculous to think about, right? Some people need to be stopped. And some people maybe even need to be separated from other people for a little while so that they can work on some stuff. And realize that they've harmed people, and then be called back in to repair that harm in some way. And some people have neurological things in their brains that make it hard or even impossible for them to experience empathy and compassion. So that's also a thing too. But I do believe that people are just born, they're not born good or evil, and they develop coping mechanisms. Why do we keep regressing? I think, I'll say that I think my perspectives on this one might be maybe more American than Canadian. But I'll say that my experience in seeing how there was a regression in the social political atmosphere towards maybe a less loving way of being in public, is because there was for a long time such a movement towards a more loving way of being, a more progressive way of being, where there was a movement towards reckoning with racial politics, with racial justice, and there was a movement towards embracing sexual and gender diversity in public, and then there was a whole group of people who didn't share those progressive values, who felt like the world was slipping away from them, and in their death, what is that term? The dying breath or the death death knell, thank you. It was a death knell, I think, of people who held those beliefs who then feel like they had to screech out and retake power. And I think that echoed throughout the world. And I think that's often what regressions are. They are small groups of angry people who are trying to seize power back from progress. And then I think it's the responsibility of people who hold more loving values to not to yell louder, because it's not about how loud we yell, but to respond. I think that's what it is. I mean, I think you can look at history and you can see the pendulum swinging back and forth at various different points in history. I'm going to do a couple more. Mm-hmm.
From Eddie Ritchie, 11 years old. Why do we exist?
I don't know. That's my favorite. That's actually one of my favorite questions. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why. I can't answer that question. That's the hardest question to answer for me. Why does something exist rather than nothing? I hope someday somebody will have a scientific answer to that question. I mean, any individual human being exists because a long line of ancestors survived and reproduced. So you can respond to that question in that way. That despite, every disease or accident or thing that might have happened that might have led to a missed encounter between any two people, or any people who procreated, or any process that led to procreation or the creation of another human being, that there could have been anything that happened along that timeline of events that interfered, and it's sort of miraculous and improbable that any one person exists because there are so many things that could have prevented it from happening. So that's kind of cool to think about, the miracle of your own existence. If your great-great-grandparents, were in the wrong place at the wrong time, you wouldn't be here, and you'd be someone else. But why does the universe exist? I don't know. Anybody have an idea?
I always had an answer to that.
What?
Because I thought about it all the time when I was a kid. I always thought that we exist because we're here to do something on this planet. What are we gonna do on this planet? Like, we're a whole bunch of different people. Well, maybe you'll cure cancer, maybe you'll do this, maybe you'll do that. We all have a purpose.
That's beautiful.
Maybe somebody plants us places and is like, let's see what they do.
That's really beautiful. So I don't believe that anything happens for a reason, but I believe that we can find a reason in the things that happen. I don't know why you are here. What's the? Eddie, I don't know why you're here, but I'd love you to tell me and get back to me on that one. I'd love you, any of you, to tell me why you exist at this particular point in history, in this particular moment. What do you exist to do? How do you exist to, forgive my saying this, save the world, to make the world better? Maybe that's why we're here. We're here to make meaning of an existence that it is inherently meaningless, because it is random to some extent. We're living in an explosion. We are particles of stardust floating around in space that happen to just momentarily, in a blip of time, become you and become conscious. And you're going to disperse eventually. Pretty soon, as a matter of fact, in terms of the timeline of the universe. You're like not even a blip. But while you're here, and while you are assembled and conscious, what are you going to do with that time? I don't know that I have time for many more, but I think I can do maybe one more. And then maybe I'll take some of these and use them for sermons. Let's see if I can do one more. If any of you wrote these and really want me to respond to them, see me after class. I wrote it down. Can you read it for me actually one more time?
It's when will we take the climate emergency seriously?
Probably when we have no other choice. The earth will sustain itself. The earth will get rid of us, and that'll be fine for the earth. Actually, it'll probably be better off. We have created a culture and a society that is unsustainable, not just like from a climate crisis perspective, but from that whole like why are we here thing, or why does evil exist? We have created a society that closes us off to love and closes us off to connection, and we probably don't deserve the earth. And the ways that we treat each other, I think, that's why my perspective is that it's more important to focus on the root cause of all of this stuff, which is, I keep saying, like a society, a culture of disconnection, a culture of competition, a culture of cis hetero patriarchal capitalist imperialist, I could keep going with those words, but a culture that is extractive, a culture that devalues some and raises some up at their expense. Because as the world disintegrates, it's going to be the people who are at the bottom of that hierarchy who are going to suffer the most. And the people at the top are going to find a way to preserve themselves. For what, I don't know. So will it be taken seriously? When will it be taken seriously? When it has to be? When there's no other choice? When there's nothing left? And in the meantime, that's not to say that we shouldn't do nothing. It may actually sound like I'm saying I don't take it seriously by responding this way. What I'm saying is we need to work on changing our culture and changing our hearts and returning to love, in changing those coping mechanisms. And thinking about that separately, the climate crisis separately from all of the other injustices, doesn't make sense in my mind. I'll stop there. Unless there's like a really simple one here that I can end on.
Oh yeah, what were you?
Oh yeah. Now I. Now I mix them all up. Let's see. So we had we had evil. We had basically why does evil exist and what is evil and what can we do about evil. I have some sort of. Yeah, great. I wish I hadn't messed them up. Okay. I had some basic questions about. Where did they all go? There's some questions about mystery and God. What does it mean to live the mystery? Are we on autopilot? What if there's more than one mystery? So questions about mystery, maybe the multiplicity of existence. There's some more questions about privilege and suffering. Oh, they're here, that's why. No, those are all the, yeah, I messed, let me look at that and I'll tell you after. Let's take a moment, let's close ourselves out of the space by singing together. We'll sing Blue Boat Home.
1064.
Which is a good place to end on this casting questions into the deep mystery of existence. That's what we are doing together
And if you feel like it, sit, do what you want.
It's 1064.
Oh, okay. Where are we going? Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companion. Making our way by the light of the heavens in a beautiful blue boat. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing my sky, my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
We take an offering. This week is our Share the Plate offering. And our offering is taken this week, is shared with Blue Nose Coastal Action Foundation, and it's to support their work towards restoration, enhancement, and conservation of our environment through research, education, action, and community engagement. On the 30th, we'll take a special offering to cover the cost of a defibrillator. I can never say that word. Defibrillator. Defibrillator. Okay, I can say it that way. Okay. And I think those are my only announcements for today. Oh, about the parade? Yes. Yeah. Just make it brief, but go ahead. Yeah. Or do you want me to just tell them, or? Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was thinking of having a meeting after church today to talk about the parade and who wanted to be involved, but it's running on and there's a choir practice, etc. So I'd just like to see if there a show of hands, if people are planning to come and join us next Saturday morning or afternoon, next Saturday afternoon, for the parade to celebrate life on Earth. It's supposed to be, it's anticipated as a fun family event. It's all walking or on a bicycle. There's no cars, no businesses, no politicians. It's just family and friends and a celebration along the waterfront for the life on Earth. So if people are thinking of joining us, could you just put your hand up? It's next Saturday afternoon, 2:00.
Margaret over there.
What?
And also online as well.
Like 3 people over there.
Yes, yes.
But
Yeah,
stopped
yeah,
raising
Tracy,
their
yeah.
hands now.
Molly, great. Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah. And online? Yes. Anybody else online? No? Oh, good, okay. So thank you very much. I'll be meeting with Mary Claire. We're figuring out how we'll do it. And I will, the parade starts at the Wave, but I'll be sending out an email about any details about that we would think you'd need to know before you got there.
Email Margaret if you have more questions. Okay. All right. I close this out by just, yep.
Yeah, and in a huge conflict of timing, I scheduled my brother-in-law's celebration of life next Saturday at 2:00. Some of you may have known his sister, Laura, his other sister-in-law, Eileen, or his mother, even his mother, Maud. He has deep connections to this congregation. So anyway, I certainly won't be there at the parade, but I just wanted to remind people, if they weren't going to the parade, and if they remember Reg or any other member of his family, that we are having the service here at 2:00.
Your benediction is this. There were some questions about, do we need to have meeting, and what does it mean to live practically in the mystery together? I saw today how these questions are brought to life a bit more by some conversation. To live in the mystery together is recognizing that no one of us has all of the answers, that we need all of us to work on this together, to talk about this together, and to talk about all these things together, to wrestle with what it means to be a good person in this short life together. Living in the mystery means recognizing that there is something greater than ourselves that we must seek and interrogate together. So go out and do that.
Oh, sorry.
Sing our closing song.
We are here. We have spent time together. 1, 2, 3. We have spent time together, and these holy moments give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again. We have spent time together. There. And these holy moments give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again. And my prayer for you is a peace that's true until we meet again.
I'll put these questions out here if anybody wants to look at them.
We are choiring because we have picked a new song for singing for youth service. It was so sad you weren't singing. And you hear? I heard that a professional.